Welcome to the In Love with PMDD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist, and I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is in approximately 1 in 5 women, and it makes you want to break up with your partner approximately 1 to 2 weeks before your period every single month. So as someone who has suffered with PMDD for over 18 years, I dedicated my doctorate practice to helping partners navigate those monthly PMDD breakups with everything from attachment styles, triggers, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to touch, all of the things that you really struggle with when you're in PMDD. And I also dedicated my dissertation to a phenomenological study of the relationship experiences of partners of individuals who suffer with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So I'm not just here to help the sufferer, the one who is suffering with PMDD. I am here for the partners as well. So if you need those private sessions, make sure you go to inlovewithpmdd.com and get those tools. So let's get into this week's PMDD trauma transformational tools that is going to help you stop the monthly breakups and stop the suffering and stress in your PMDD relationship. Let's get into it. Today, I want to talk to you about a phrase called vicarious depression. So I know that a lot of you may have heard about vicarious trauma. This is one of the things that I used within my PMDD research study, my dissertation. And what I have also found is that there is a term called vicarious depression. So this is not recognized as a clinical term or a diagnosis, but it is definitely something that PMDD partners suffer with. So this is something I was really excited to bring to the research and the literature because it is the result of your PMDD partner experiencing depressive symptoms or emotional distress as a result of closely observing or empathizing with someone else who is suffering from depression. So the reason why I really wanted to dive into vicarious depression is because I have actually lived it very recently, and I like to use all of the things that happened with my PMDD partner as a learning lesson for you, because I develop tools based off of what goes on in my PMDD relationship and then all of my private clients. So everything that I develop for you, all the tools that I'm giving you is customized to PMDD partners. It is not something that is cookie cutter. And this is why a lot of times where you may go to counselors, therapists, psychologists, and you may be a little bit frustrated because a lot of the tools are very general and work really well in your follicular phase, but then you get into PMDD and nothing is really customized to what happens for PMDD partners. And that is what we do here. Everything is customized to you being in a relationship with a PMDD partner. So now that you know what vicarious depression is, we're going to talk about the emotional toll that it takes to go through this process. And a lot of times it is the result of being a caregiver. So we talked about in an earlier episode about how I had gone through being a caregiver for my PMDD partner. And this is exactly how I developed vicarious depression. And it was because my PMDD partner was depressed for a very long time, on and off, trying to dig himself out of it. And I was very understanding. And, as I've said before, my PMDD partner has seasonal depression, but the type of depression that he's been experiencing as of late has nothing to do with the seasons, which is what I was used to. It actually has to do with where he is in his life and just going through a really rough time. And in turn, our relationship has been impacted because I was in the place where I was initially very detached from the depression, meaning I knew that he had it. I wasn't physically or emotionally affected by it. I was kind of able to be that motivator and try to be positive and try to do all of my, self-care things in order to make sure I was still good. But when the vicarious depression happens over a long span of time, that's when you get to the point where it becomes, a sense of burnout. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on another episode, but it's not meant for you to endure for a long period of time. So being that my PMDD partner has been in this state of depression because of where he is in his life for a long period of time, it started to pour over onto me. So just imagine you being in a place where you're trying to help your PMDD partner. They're falling down a mountain. You reach down your hand and you're trying to hold on to them. And instead of you pulling them up over the mountain, you actually end up falling over yourself because the weight of the depression really gets you to the point where you start to feel depressed. And that is where I have been. And it's been about, I always use the phrase 40 days and 40 nights, but that's literally how long it's been that I've been in this state where I didn't really recognize it initially. So initially you may just experience some of these symptoms that I'm about to tell you about and you not really know what's going on. But this is what it looks like when you have vicarious depression in your intimate relationship. The first thing is the emotional withdrawal. So a PMDD partner who is experiencing depression may emotionally withdraw from the relationship. They become distant, unresponsive, and they appear disinterested in any of the activities that they used to enjoy together. And I know this really showed up for me because I just was in this place where, my PMDD partner was mentioning things to do that I would normally love to do, but I was in this place where I just didn't want to do anything but just sleep. I didn't want to travel. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to socialize. I didn't want to do anything. And it wasn't because of anything else that was happening in my life. A lot of times when we were arguing, my PMDD partner would say, well, maybe you're just depressed because you have other things going on in your life. And I sat and I thought about it. I'm like, actually, every single thing that I could think of, every other area of my life was amazing. This is supposed to be the happiest time in my life. I finally finished with my degree. I got it published in the literature. My business is amazing. My clients are amazing. I love them so much. And our daughter is doing well. She's going into 10th grade. Work is amazing. Everything was going good. My health is good. Although and we'll get into this, but my PMDD partner's morning routine literally went down the toilet. And that was my first sign that I was going through vicarious depression, because the second thing that's going to show up for you is a loss of interest in activities that used to bring you joy. You used to be happy about doing them. And one of those things is my PMDD partner's morning routine. I've done it for so many years, like over 10 years. I've been doing the same routine, and the time frame is always the same as soon as I wake up, but the things that I do has shifted and changed. But I've never not done a morning routine. I've always done it. And so I all of a sudden started to develop this loss of interest in even waking up and doing my PMDD partner's morning routine. And if you follow me on Instagram, where I vlog every single day, I vlog doing my morning routine. And what I found is, like, over the past 40 days, now that I recognize what it is, I've just been doing the daily walks with my dog, because of course I have a Shih Tzu dog, Leo, who has to be walked every day. So thank goodness, he's kept some sense of normality, but I haven't done all of the other things, and I've not been interested in it. I've not been interested in getting up and doing my morning routine. And the times that I have done it, like once or twice a week, I forced myself to do it, but I didn't find any satisfaction in it. It was almost like when you're going through vicarious depression, even the things that used to cause you joy and cause you that you had a lot of interest in, they start to drain you. And so my PMDD partner's morning routine, instead of it energizing me and making me feel better about suffering through PMDD, it started to drain me and seem like one other task that I needed to do. And it started to be a burden. So I wasn't getting any results from it. I felt a lot of stress and inflammation in my body because I felt like I was requiring my body to do something that I genuinely didn't want to do. And the loss of interest, when you mentally don't want to do something, in your body is very responsive to your mental state. So a lot of times when I used to do my PMDD partner's morning routine, I didn't feel like it all the time, but then I would eventually like get into it and I would feel amazing afterwards. Whereas when I went through this vicarious depression, I didn't feel like it in the beginning and I didn't feel like it at the end. I wasn't getting any results from it. And that's when I knew something was wrong because this is so routine for me and I'm a very routine person. This happened to me. This has never happened to me before. And it happened to me for so long, the 40 days, that I was like, wait a minute, something is going on. I really need to research this. And when I researched it, there was something that I used in my PMDD partner's research study, my dissertation, that was vicarious trauma. And what that means is when you witness someone going through a traumatic experience, you in turn experience a traumatic experience from viewing their traumatic experience. So vicarious means you are viewing someone else doing something and you're feeling the emotional and physical effects of it. So that makes sense to me in the realms of trauma. But when it comes to depression, I had no idea that because I was witnessing my PMDD partner be depressed for so long, that I stopped being that positive, bright light in his life. And I started to be just as negative as he was, just as depressed as he was. So I was falling into the same realm of what he was feeling. And by the time I realized it, I was so deep in it that I almost didn't know how to pull myself out of it. And that's a scary thing because my PMDD partner's morning routine was something that kept me sane in the least. Like whatever was going on with PMDD, whatever symptoms I had, the hot flashes, the body aches, the intrusive thoughts, all of these things, whatever it is that I had going on, I would reset myself by waking up in the morning and doing that morning routine. And I've gone for 40 days. And I would say out of the 40 days, I've probably spent 10 of those days doing my morning routine. And a lot of those days were training my soldiers. It wasn't even specifically my PMDD partner's morning routine, but it was a morning routine because I had to train, my soldiers. So it wasn't necessarily for me. And there was a lot, there is a lot that goes into my morning routine that's not just physical exercise and movement. Also, it's getting my mind right. It is getting my intrusive thoughts out. It is reminding myself of why I'm with my partner. It is getting me in a state that, number one, I'm not going to go off of my partner. And number two, I'm just dealing with whatever emotions are coming up from any past arguments or fights that we've had. And this has really impacted the next thing that I'm going to tell you is the changes in my mood. So I already experience mood fluctuations, as I'm sure you do, with PMDD, but I would have frequent mood swings, irritability, emotional instability. And this was all because I was experiencing this vicarious trauma. I would spend time with my PMDD partner. We would argue about something and it would take me deeper into that vicarious trauma where I started to develop a sense of sadness. And my sense of sadness made me not even want to fight back in arguments. And I don't mean fight like physically fight, meaning I didn't even want to argue. I was just kind of waving the white flag because I started to feel heavy and I started to feel weak in my body. So when this initially happened, I remember talking to my best friend Angie every morning because I talked to her and I said, "Hey, I'm having some really good sleep." Like I almost didn't notice that I was going into depression because I was like praising the fact that I was sleeping so long and so deeply. And I know that she suffers with insomnia. I normally suffer with insomnia in my PMDD, and I no longer had insomnia. I had hypersomnia, which is the over excessive amount of sleep where you just sleep and sleep and sleep, wake up, do something little, and then go back to sleep. And that's where I was experiencing. So I have a sleep app. And my sleep app was telling me I was getting my REM sleep, which is the deepest, most restorative sleep that you can get. So I thought it was a good thing. I'm like, wow, this is so amazing. I'm getting this really good sleep. And I had no idea that it was because I was depressed. I had no idea I was sleeping so well because that's all my mind and body felt capable of doing was sleeping. Not to mention during this time, I had just completely detached from anything like healthy in a sense. I just was like, I just felt like none of the stuff that mattered to me as far as being healthy, even they didn't matter. They just didn't matter. And that's that loss of interest. I was just like, it is what it is. I'm going to eat what I want to eat. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to sleep a long time. And I didn't realize I was going down this rabbit hole. And being that my PMDD partner and I spent a lot of time long distance, he wasn't seeing this. He was just noticing when I said good morning that I wasn't waking up as early to say good morning. Like he was still waking up at 4 something in the morning, like he always does, even though he, physically wasn't doing a lot of activity because he's recovering from his surgeries. He was still waking up really early in the morning on doing his normal routine. Whereas I was waking up and then going back to sleep. Like it's almost like my body would wake up at its normal time. I normally wake up at 5. And then I would get up and walk, our dog or do my morning routine, check in with my private clients, all the things. And I was waking up at 5 and then snoozing my alarm and almost I was started setting another alarm for like 7, and then it got 8, and when I had to be out of the house by like 8:30, like I was literally cutting it so close, which when I got into PMDD, it was causing me a lot of anxiety because I was constantly rushing because I had no time. One of the reasons why I always do my morning routine is because if I have to be out of the house and at work by 9 o'clock, finish with everything, I would wake up early at 5 and get all of, the stuff that I had to do done with our daughter, with the dog, with my private clients so that I could like completely invest myself into work. And being that I was in this place of snoozing, I was constantly rushing, which made me constantly on high alert, which exasperated my anxiety. It gave me a lot of anxiety that I was always late and I had a lot of intrusive thoughts. Even though I'm the head of my department where I work, I had like, oh my gosh, I have the pressure of the expectation of my soldiers. They're expecting me to be there. I got to be there. I got to be. And then I'm beating myself up for snoozing my alarm. And it's just been a horrible morning. Whereas my mornings used to be my safe place, and now they're a place where I'm just dreading it. Like I dread getting up every morning. And when I get up, I move so slow. So what the vicarious depression has done for me, it has caused me to move very slow with doing very basic things. I mean, taking my vitamins, brushing my teeth. Like I feel like I'm in slow motion, like somebody just slowed everything down. And that's the depression and the heaviness. And I started to feel really overwhelmed by doing basic tasks. Like I always drink lemon water in the morning. So I cut the lemon and I have this big cup with a straw and I fill it up with water and I drink the cup of water like before I leave for work. And I was literally like, get up, like walk to the refrigerator, grab the lemon, grab the knife, cut the lemon. Like everything was just in slow motion. Whereas I feel like I used to do it effortlessly and not even pay attention to it. And now it's just like, oh, I have the lemon in my hand. I put it on the counter. Now I have to get the knife to cut it. Like everything seems so overwhelming. It's like, now the lemon is cut in half. Now I have to squeeze the lemon to get the juice from. Like I was like, why am I paying attention to all of these minuscule tasks? And it's because when you're going through vicarious depression, everything seems so hard for you. And this is why a lot of times PMDD partners want to go to just sleep in bed because it's like, I feel more safe sleeping in bed because everything else seems so overwhelming. And the next thing that came up for me was I had difficulties communicating with my PMDD partner. Like, whereas he would call me when he got off of work and he'd be like, hey, this is what I did today, blah, blah, blah. And he was saying all these things. And I was like, okay. Like the depressed PMDD partner struggles to express their feelings and the responses may be more negative or critical. Like, whereas I used to be really positive and like, oh, that's great job, babe. Like, I'm glad you got that done. I kind of was like Number one, I was very dismissive. I was just like, okay, you did that. And then number two, in my mind, I had all of these like rude, intrusive thoughts, like, woohoo, good for you. Like, I don't care. Like, I just was so negative and like, I felt so selfish and I felt like I don't even want to be on this phone. I don't even want to talk to you. Like nothing brought me joy. Talking to my PMDD partner did not bring me joy, did not make me feel connected. It became a burden for me. I almost was like, oh, when I saw him call, I was like, here we go. Here we go. He's probably going to complain about something. And granted, I told you my PMDD partner is going through a lot right now, but because I was experiencing this vicarious depression, I was like, up, he's about to be, he's about to start complaining. Here we go. Even though my PMDD partner was trying to dig himself out of the depression and be like a little bit positive or like, whatever, I was now deeper in the depression than he was. And so I remember him texting me after our conversations, like, oh, you're not connecting with me all day. And he got off the phone and he was saying, like, I love you. Like, and we always say, I love you. And I was just like, okay, like, talk to you later. Like, I was so emotionally disconnected. And so I didn't want to communicate because I was so depressed. I was in that dark place where I was just like, let's just hurry up and get this conversation over with. And at the time, I really just didn't feel bad about it because I felt like I was in it. Like I was in this place where I just didn't want to do anything. And I was deep in the depression. Like I felt like I was like surrounded, like deep in a hole where I couldn't even climb out, even if I wanted to. Like I didn't feel like I had the energy to. And the next way that the vicarious depression showed up for me was a loss of sex drive. So, vicarious depression often leads to a decreased interest in sex and intimacy, affection, all of the things. When I got into this place, when my PMDD partner was going through his post surgery, his post op, and he couldn't be physically intimate with me, he couldn't be affectionate, I didn't care because I was in that place of experiencing depression. I didn't want to have sex anyway. I was like, oh, guess we're not doing it. Then when he got better and he started to recover from surgery, he was kind of like he literally just straight up asked me like, hey, so are we gonna be intimate? Are we gonna have sex? Like, because I was coming for a visit and I was like, can I just go to sleep? Like I just wanted to roll over and go to sleep. And I've never said this to him before. Like I've always, because I know me and the way my body and my mind works, even if I don't feel like initially having sex, once we get started and into it, I get into it. Like that's how it works for me. So I normally would just always say, okay. And then eventually we would both have a good experience and we would both connect and all of these things. But I remember when I was in this vicarious depression, I was like, no, I'm good. And I literally like rolled over and went to sleep. And my PMDD partner was so confused and it made him so jealous, so insecure. He started arguing with me, like, are you cheating on me? Are you doing this? And I, again, remember I'm in that place where I was depressed. I didn't even have the energy to argue with him. I'm like, what? Like, no, I'm going to sleep. Like, I don't like, I didn't even respond to it. I kind of dismissed it. I minimized it. Like, whereas in the past, when I wasn't depressed, I would be super offended and I would go and explain to him why I wasn't cheating on him and what that meant to me and how that offended me. And I was in a point where if you whatever it is, you want to say I'm cheating, I'm cheating. Like I don't care. Like I don't have the energy to deal with this. Like I don't even have the energy to have an argument with you. And the next way that the vicarious depression showed up was physical symptoms. I started to experience, like I told you, the fatigue, but I started to have headaches, really bad tension headaches. And so I just body aches, really a lot of tension in my traps. Like I felt stressed and I felt inflamed, like very inflamed. My appetite was low. I know some people when they go through this, they have an increased appetite, but I was like losing my appetite. I barely wanted to like all the stuff that I would want to eat. Nothing tasted. It was weird. things didn't even taste the same to me that I would have normally loved. Like my daughter bought me a pizza and I remember eating it like, and I think I said like, "Ooh, pizza." Whereas pizza is one of my favorite things, but I just ate it like a slice and just put it to the side. Like it wasn't, nothing was satiating me. Like nothing was satisfying. I don't know. I just felt like I was a shell of myself. And I could see where I used to be, but I couldn't get back to there even if I wanted to. And the next way that the vicarious depression showed up was increased conflict in my PMDD relationship. So depression can lead to heightened sensitivity and irritability already. So me and my PMDD partner started having a lot of arguments, a lot of conflicts, a lot of talking about issues. And this is before I got to the point where I was just like, you know what? We don't need to talk about anything that's going on. I remember him calling me one time and saying like, is there anything you wanted to talk about? Because every single time he would ask me that, I would have like a laundry list of things to say about issues that we were having in the relationship. And I remember the day that he asked me that. He was like, is there anything you want to talk about? And I was like, no, there's nothing I want to talk to you about. And that's how I knew that the conflict and the vicarious depression had set in, because I had conflict within myself, but I had the inability to express it. It was almost not worth it to me. And my PMD partner was very confused again, like, wait, you don't, I know you have an issue pretty much, but you don't want to talk about it. I'm like, no, because I felt like, what's the point? What is the point of bringing up an argument that is going to lead to issues in our PMDD relationship that I knew that I didn't have energy to deal with? I just felt like I'd rather just avoid them. And being that I have an avoidant attachment style, it was like a very bad um combination, because I know that I can get into that avoidant state. And when you have an avoidant attachment style as a PMDD partner, it takes a lot of energy. It takes so much energy for you to not be avoidant. And I was at that place where I wasn't even trying to not be avoidant. I wasn't trying to like stop it. I was just allowing myself to ride the wave. So I was riding the wave of being avoidant, and I'm like, well, I guess this is what it is. And I was building the wall in between me and my PMDD partner brick by brick. Like the more distant I became emotionally, the more he wanted to argue. And I started to get to a place where I was just taking it. And I just became more sad. Instead of me being angry and mad at the things that he was saying, the hurtful words that he was saying out of being triggered, because he got triggered by how avoidant I was. So that's what caused a lot of his outbursts and hurtful words that he said, was because I was emotionally shut down. So he thought by expressing his emotions like in that way, it would trigger me to like do the same thing. And instead of me doing it, I just pretty much, it didn't bother me. It didn't faze me. I was like, meh, okay. Like that's your thing. You want to be mad. You want to be whatever. Like I'm good. I'm not going there. And so he felt like he was alone in that place of expressing his emotions. And I remember him saying, oh, well, I guess it is what it is. And that's normally a time where I would be like, no, it's not. It is what it is. Like, let's talk about that. And I was like, what's the point? Like, I didn't see the point. And a lot of times, if you ask yourself, man, have I ever experienced vicarious depression? Ask yourself, have you ever said that statement or said something close to it? And that was, it is what it is. Where you're like, whatever happens, I don't even care anymore. Like I'm so over it. Like I don't even care. Like whatever happens with the relationship, whatever happens with us, like I'm burnt out. I just became really sad and tearful and sensitive. And I remember being I felt very fragile when I was in that place, when I had the vicarious depression, because I felt like I was going to break at any moment. You could say something to me in regards to my relationship, and I was so unhappy that you could say it to me that I would literally break down crying. Like it was hard for me to function because I felt this deep sense of sadness about our relationship. I felt like it was a dying. Like I felt like it was literally dying and it was in hospice. Like I'm like, well, my relationship is on its last legs. Like this is the end, and I began to do the last thing that I'm going to bring up for you, and that's a loss of hope. So hopelessness is one of the biggest terms that I used within my dissertation because one of the theories that I based it on was the interpersonal theory of suicide, and one of the main categories of that was hopelessness. When you have a sense of hopelessness, that leads directly to suicide. And so I delved very deep into that into my dissertation. And so part of that I was experiencing, I just lost hope for our PMDD relationship getting any better. I knew that I wasn't happy. And instead of like searching for ways to make it better, I just accepted that this is like a failure. Like, and I don't know if you've ever been there in your PMDD relationship where you're like, I guess we're just not going to make it. I guess this is it for us. I guess we're not compatible enough. And then your PMDD partner can start to try to reassure you, but you're just so convinced, like, no, we gave it a good go. We tried our best. We had a couple good years. We had a couple good months. Whatever it is, I just felt a sense of finality with our PMDD relationship, especially if you have some history with your PMDD partner, because you feel like I've tried all of these things. I've tried to do all these things. Nothing's changing. Nothing's working. It's all the same. It's more of the same if I do anything. So what I've actually had is I've had a lot of PMDD partners that have come to me in this state of vicarious depression. And I see it in them so clearly because I've gone through it myself. And it's almost like I would present the tools for them to use, whether it's in our private sessions or in the Breakup Proof Academy. And the whole time they would be like, no, well, we've already tried that. And I know a lot of times they haven't exactly tried that. Like they may have tried something close to it, but they're almost like, yeah, but if we do that, then this is going to happen. Like there's almost this making an excuse as to why the tool is not going to work before you even give it a chance. And it's because you've lost hope. So I want you to know if you've ever gone to do something about your PMDD relationship and someone has suggested something to you, if you listen to something on here and I've said, hey, if you're going through this, like do this, use this tool, and you automatically start to give yourself an excuse as to why the tool is not going to work, you're in that stage of hopelessness because maybe you tried a lot of things in the past and they haven't worked and you really don't want to get your hopes up and you're genuinely thinking, I don't want to be so disappointed. I don't want my PMDD partner to be so disappointed about trying to do this thing and then it never actually work. And I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like because I was in that place where I was having sessions because, as I tell you all the time, I have private sessions with my PMDD partner once a week. Every single week I have private sessions. And I was noticing that I was still feeling some type of way. I was still feeling sad and depressed, even though we were having the sessions. And that was very unusual for me because when I was having the sessions before, I would feel so accomplished. So like, yeah, we did a good thing because we had the session, we worked out the issue. And now I was in a place where I was kind of like, we had the session. I still don't feel better. So then when we went to have the session again, I didn't even want to. I'm like, oh, this is not going to work. It's going to be a waste of my time. They're going to say this. Like you start to predict what it's going to be. And then that's when you don't want to use the tools. You're like, oh, they're going to say this. I'm going to say this. No one's going to feel better. It's probably going to be worse. They're going to blame me. Like, so if you notice, you start telling yourself a story in your mind about why it's not going to work. It's because you're hopeless. Not you're hopeless, but you're in that stage of hopelessness. You've lost hope for your PMDD relationship. You've lost hope for your PMDD partner. And unfortunately, you would think that, oh, just like give up at that point. But in order to fight back from being in that hopelessness state, You need to actually use one of my tools and see that they work so that it can snap you out of it and you can counter that feeling of hopelessness with something that actually gives you hope. So a lot of times we kind of go against the things that cause us suffering when instead we're supposed to be going towards them. So when it comes to feeling hopeless, instead of going away from the actions and the tools that are going to bring hope back to your PMDD relationship, you need to go towards them. Because then if you use one of the tools and you see that it works, then it's like, oh, okay, so maybe I don't have to be in this state. But I want you to really go through this episode and really see where you can identify, because if you're in that stage of feeling hopeless, feeling like you have vicarious depression, maybe your PMDD partner is going through something in their life right now. Big life changes. Maybe they just found out that they have a disorder. Maybe they have ADD. Maybe they have ADHD. Maybe they have autism. Maybe they have OCD. Maybe they have bipolar. Maybe they have depression. They have anxiety. They have all of these things going on, because as PMDD partners, we're not the only people that have stuff going on in our relationship. And it's maybe that they've been suffering through it for so long that you're in that place where you're feeling like you're being dragged down by your PMDD partner. And what I want you to know is that it is very possible that you started this journey with good intentions. Like, I started doing this to support my PMDD partner, and now I feel like I don't have the energy to support my PMDD partner. When you notice that you're in that space, the things that you need to do and the things that I had to do for myself is notice the ways that I fell into the depression. So remember, I talked to you earlier in this episode about me falling into the depression by not doing my PMDD partner's morning routine. In order to dig myself out of this, I set a date. So I think I recognized this on like a Tuesday. So I didn't want to overwhelm myself because I was deep in PMDD, but I said starting Sunday. I always start on Sunday. I don't start on Monday because I have more time on Sunday to start a new routine or do and add in new things in my day that doesn't impact my work or anything with our daughter. And I said, starting on Monday or Sunday, I'm going to add in the things that I've taken away that it made me feel good before. And there was a lot of things that I had canceled, I had put off. I was supposed to go socializing. And instead of me canceling, I reached out to my friend and was like, hey, do you want to meet for dinner? So what you need to do is start putting yourself back in that environment that you strategically took yourself out of. You have to go back and start doing the things again. You have to get up out of that depression, out of that vicarious depression, and go do those things. And you're not going to feel like it. I remember the first time I did this, I committed to doing it, which a lot of times I've done in PMDD, where I commit to doing something in my follicular phase, and then I get in PMDD and they're like, hey, are you coming tonight? Blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I agree to this? Like, so I had committed to going out to this dinner with one of my close friends, and as a way of pulling me out of this vicarious depression. And I thought I was going to go there and I was going to talk about all my issues and talk about my partner and just have like a fest of like negativity. And I didn't want to go. Literally, it was like an hour before, and I was sitting there like, can I think of an excuse? I was literally in a Snuggie, like curled up in a Snuggie with the hood on, the hood literally on top of my head, not wanting to go. And I had to force myself. And this is a personal responsibility if you want to get out of this place. And I really wanted to get out of this place because I could see who I was before. And it had only been 40 days. So I can't imagine people that go through this for years at a time. And my heart goes out to them, because you can't get time back. And I'm very aware of that. I've lost too many people in my life to take time for granted. And I said, I'm just going to make myself go. And so I got up, I drove there, I put on music that I know made me feel good, even though I didn't really want to do it. And I ended up going there. And I think the drive was like 30 minutes, and I got there and I had the most amazing time. And I didn't talk about all the things that I was depressed about. I talked about them a little bit, and I kind of stopped myself because I felt myself getting into that negative mindset again. I was like, oh, here it goes. Because, a lot of times you can start to, whatever you talk about, you experience the emotions as if you're going through the situation again. So if you've ever been in that point with your PMDD partner where you're talking to a friend and you're trying to explain to them what the argument was with you and your PMDD partner, and then at the end of it, you feel angry again or you feel hurt again. I felt myself get to that point, and then I kind of backed out and started talking about something else. And it's about choosing the right community to connect to in that time. So this is why I love the Breakup Proof Academy, because a lot of times if you're in that place where you're feeling like you're feeling depressed, you're feeling like you're going through this and you want to get yourself out, join the academy so that we can lift you up in a way where it's like, I understand what you're going through, whether I want to or not. Like, I'm in this with you. A lot of times what the academy members are saying, like, you're in my brain, you're reading my mind. It's because we're going through the same things. I can tell you exactly what you're feeling, exactly what you're going through, because I experience it myself. And I know it's not fun, and I know it's hurtful, and I know it's horrible. But get yourself into a community to where you can lean in and just say, hey, I need to talk. I was on a Breakup Proof Academy live this past Tuesday, because I have the lives every Tuesday. And at the end of it, one of the academy members was like, we're here for you, like the both of us. If you need anything, just message us. And I felt so supported and so safe and so grateful, because they weren't saying it just to say it. In the Breakup Proof Academy, it's very private, it's very intimate. I know your name. It's not this group where you're going to go in there and there's hundreds of thousands of people that you're just going to get lost and you're not going to get seen and you're not going to feel heard, and whatever it is that's going on in your PMDD relationship. I see you just like I see my private clients one-on-one. We address your specific issues, and every single week you get heard, you get seen, you get understood, you get tools that are specifically related to the scenarios that are going on in your PMDD relationship. Because what we do when I'm having these lives, I'm talking about a specific topic, but then we're also talking about different scenarios that we have going on in our PMDD relationships. And I give you customized PMDD tools for that, to get rid of the stress. Because I know a lot of times we carry around that stress and that depression. We're carrying it around and it feels heavy. I remember it felt so heavy for me. Like, it was, if there was a word that I could use to describe it, it would have been heavy. I felt, that's why I was sleeping so much, because I felt so heavy. I literally felt like I had like a weighted blanket on me, a legit weighted blanket. And the reason why is because it was heavy emotionally and it was manifesting itself physically in my body. I felt the stress in my body, the tension. I went to get a massage, and the massage therapist was like, "Oh my gosh, you're so tight here and here." And I'm like, "I know." Like, my body was literally in knots. I was depressed and heavy, and it felt like I had strategic rocks placed all over my body. When I got up to do anything, I felt like I was walking around with like 20, 30 pounds extra on me, because I was carrying around all that stress and overwhelm and hopelessness and not seeing a way out. I did not see a way out. And that's how you know that you're in that realm of depression with your PMDD partner, because you're thinking about the arguments that you've had, you're thinking about the fights, and you're not seeing a way out. And I know for me, I was like, what is the core issue here? And it was my PMDD. You can't control, like, I can't control the fact that my PMDD partner was depressed. I can't control it. And even him, he was in that place of trying to dig himself out, and then he would go back in. He'd dig himself out. And a lot of his depression was based on, it was based on outside factors, which I feel like is so dangerous, because if my mental health and my well-being is tied to something outside of me, I automatically don't feel safe, because I feel like people shift and change and have different emotions. So if my emotional well-being is tied to my partner, which is what got me into this situation, that's where I put myself in a very dangerous position, because I felt like I can know, like I was trying to help him out of it for so long. And then I finally got to a point where I can't be in a good mood because he's not in a good mood. I can't do things that make me feel good because he's not doing things that make him feel good. And it's almost like a codependent mentality where I lost. I lost the fight of depression. Depression won. It won my PMDD partner and then took me down with it. And I went to the beginning of feeling like, where did it all start? And this is what I want to tell you. It all started when I stopped doing little things that made me feel good. My morning routine, listening to high vibe music. Like I love EDM, like the electric dance music, listening to Afro beats. Like I love it. I started listening to freaking Adele. I love Adele. She's so talented, but I know every single time I listen to her, I'm going into a deep depression. Because um anytime I deal with depression in my PMDD, it's her latest album that she has where she has that song that's like My Little Love. And that album will take you to the bathtub and you'll be like leaning down in there and you're just like, it'll take you to a place where you just want to sit in sorrow and like that. For me, I noticed my music style changed. Um, I just wasn't, I could have gone on vacation a couple times and I didn't. And those were things that were my thing. I remember one time I went on vacation when I was going through this vicarious depression and I just literally sat in the hotel room. I could have gone out, I could have done more things. I just sat there and I just wanted to like watch Netflix. And I love Netflix for so many reasons. One of it is it allows me to disassociate and like get a break from my PMDD symptoms, like putting my focus on something else other than my suffering. And normally I would like look at really upbeat, like happy, series. Like I finished Manifest. I went to finish, oh my gosh, what is that one? I love Firefly Lane. There was one that just came out, Sweet Magnolia, like very positive, but there's another one that just came out. I cannot remember the name of it, but I literally watched the whole next season that came out. Like I watched it in like literally a weekend. And I try to look at things that make me feel good. And I noticed when I was on Netflix and I was going through my vicarious depression, I started listening to or looking at very depressing shows, and it's just like so when you're thinking about how do I get myself out of it, um, Virgin River, I had turned on my TV to figure out what was the one Virgin River, I figured out, but you just, you get to a point where the things that used to bring you joy no longer do it. And I don't want you to get into that place, but the way that you unravel it is to start back doing those things. And I wish I could tell you an easier trick to do it, but that's the fastest way, is to start plugging those things back in. So when I had started that Monday and I said, all right, it's Monday, I'm going to go back to doing the things. And I didn't like it the first time when I first did my morning routine, but I remember I started to feel good the day of. I started to feel good like after my workout, after my walk, after this. Also when you're going through this vicarious depression with your PMDD partner, they can start to look differently to you. Like I remember when I was going through my vicarious depression, I was not attracted to my PMDD partner. They started to look like they were not my type. I wasn't interested in them. And that's where the loss of intimacy came from, because I was just like, take it or leave it. Like it was almost like, no, I'm good. And I've been in those places when I'm deep in PMDD and I'm not attracted to my partner, but I know it's because of PMDD. When you're dealing with that depression, you have to think it is on top of what you're already experiencing in PMDD. So if you go into PMDD and your attraction level to your partner already decreases, add depression to that, and you're really not going to want to be around them. And they may be saying, well, why don't you want to be intimate? Why don't you want? And it's like, because they don't appeal to you, because you're just not, you don't want to give the effort. You don't want to give the time of day. And so your whole relationship with your PMDD partner will transform when you get yourself out of this. And if this is something that you know that you need help with, like I did, I had to take it in small steps. That's what I would tell you. Don't try to do all the things all at once. So if you notice by listening to this that you've taken a lot of things out of your day-to-day things that made you feel good, don't try to put it all back in on day one. Little by little, put things back in that you were taking out. Start to adjust little things, because it's all about the information that you're taking in. You don't know it, but the information that you're taking in when you're depressed is very negative. Even post, oh my goodness. I feel like Instagram, Facebook, all of the things, they can sense my depression because they start sending me memes and quotes about how much you deserve better, why you shouldn't be with your PMDD partner, how much everyone's unhappy in their relationship. Like, I start to receive all of these downloads of things that are completely negative. And it's because that's how I'm showing up. That's what I'm putting out to the universe. And it is literally coming back at me in that same way. And it's very depressing because I'm depressed. So to pull yourself out of it, just monitor. You may have to mute some accounts. I remember I initially had to mute some of the accounts that were feeding me on a daily basis of things that were causing me to fall deeper into depression. So I want you to start to think about, when you're doing certain activities, how am I feeling after I do this? Are you feeling more depressed or are you feeling less depressed? Ask yourself that question. And if the answer is I'm feeling more depressed, stop it. And not just stop it, but replace it with something else that's going to cause you to feel good again. We need you to feel good again so that you can break yourself out of this vicarious depression. Because remember, this is not something that came to you. When you have vicarious depression, it came from your PMDD partner. You don't have to cause your PMDD partner to feel better and to get out of depression in order for you to get out of it. You can get out of it yourself. But once you get out of it, you have to put up certain boundaries and say, hey, listen, the last time I was in this with you, I got dragged down and I had to fight my way out. And if you're a partner, like, that's what your commitment is, like, that's what you do. But now you know what could happen. So now I had to put up certain boundaries, like, hey, if you're in that place and you're really being negative and you're really like not wanting to get out of it and you're just wanting to stay in that place, I'm going to be there with you, but I'm going to have to set some boundaries to where I don't fall into that trap myself and not be able to function. Because if I can't function, I can't be there for you. Because what are all the things that I mentioned to you today that happened to my PMDD partner as a result of me being in vicarious trauma? He wasn't giving love. He wasn't getting affection. He wasn't getting attention. He wasn't getting what he needed because I was in the same place that he was at. So what good is it doing for me to be in that place where neither one of us are getting what it is that we need? So I want you to recognize that by you taking the step to get out of this vicarious depression, you're actually helping your PMDD partners to get back into the place where you can support them without going down with them, right? And if you found yourself in this place, I want this to be your wake-up call where you're like, yes, I've seen myself in that position. I've seen myself in that space, and I don't like it. Because I know me, I didn't like it because the persona, the personality that I was exuding was not me. It just wasn't me. And it felt like I was watching myself operate in with like a different person's body. Like, I felt like it wasn't me. And a lot of times when you're in that depression, you do have that disassociative nature where you're watching yourself do stuff that you wouldn't normally do, but you're not able to stop it in the moment. So if you know that this is something that you need help with, join the academy and make sure you have the support to dig yourself out of this vicarious depression so that you don't fall into it again and it causes more stress for you and your PMDD relationship. We got this. I hope this PMDD episode helped you and your partner in your struggles within your relationship. And if this is something that you know that you need help with and you need further support, individualized support, make sure you're going to inlovewithpmdd.com and you're getting those private sessions to really work through what you're going through in your relationship, specifically in regards to PMDD. And also, I want you to leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. What this does is it helps other PMDD sufferers and partners find this show that can help them get these free PMDD relationship tools. I remember what it felt like to not know that there were tools out there specifically for PMDD relationships. So I want to make sure that you are sharing these tools with others, share them on your social media, share them with people that you know that are also struggling in their PMDD relationships. Until next episode, this is Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist. One more thing, I almost forgot. I now have the Fresh Start PMDD Partners Workbook. What this workbook can do is if you've had past traumatic experiences with your partner, past fights, past arguments, and they keep coming up every single month in PMDD, I created a Fresh Start Workbook so that you can deal with all of the traumatic experiences that have happened in the past in PMDD rage and all of these things so you can stop going through the same cycle again and again and again. So get that workbook. It comes with a video episode of the actual podcast that I recorded on getting a fresh start in your PMDD relationship. So you're not continuing the same cycle again and again and again. So make sure that you get that workbook. And if you need those individualized counseling sessions, you know where to go, inlovewithpmdd.com. Until next time, we got this. Love you.